Hey guys, Steve the Amateur Historian here, coming to you on another soon-to-be very hot day on the end fringe of summer. I'm doing a little intro piece here because I'm gonna do a video here I'm putting two videos together that I did, because one I did by myself and then the other one I did a while later when I found reason to go back out to where I was. One of my most favorite buildings in Portland, very neglected. A lot of people drive by and have no clue of its history because it looks almost like a rundown shack. It's referred to as the Gray Building. One of Portland's first prominent black families lived there. Its last time being used was as a restaurant. It closed in 2014. I don't want to jump into all the history stuff because you'll see that in this video, but it's one of my favorite places in Portland, maybe because it's so easily missed, so easily forgotten. And so the first video you're going to see is it was a very short, just history lesson type thing, along with pictures and video that I'd taken of the place in the past. And then the second video was a video I produced for a Black History Month series I did back in February, where I went back to the Gray Building for a specific purpose to reference a specific incident known as the Possum Incident. So these are two videos I posted on my old channel. I'm trying to get some more of my old content up because the people that were following that channel really loved it, and I don't want that to just be kind of lost to everybody else, especially if they really enjoyed it. So here we go. Two videos I did on the awesome, I hope they fix it up and do something good with it and don't demo it like everything else, Gray Building. Hey everyone, Steve the Amateur Historian, here with another video for you that's a collection of pictures and footage I captured with my DSLR for when I was trying to shoot footage for a segment to put in my Gems of Oregon film that I just have not had any time to work on. I'm doing so much stuff for this channel, other film work, my regular day job, trying to sleep at night. So I'm taking a lot of this footage I used and making some short videos with it to show you these really interesting, very easy to miss landmarks. And the one that I'm doing today is one of my favorite because it's just such a tiny little obscure building. I'm sure people go up and down the highway right next to it every day and just don't even notice it. This tiny building, dating back to the turn of the century, is today just known as the Gray Building. As you can see in this picture, it used to be a bar, a restaurant. It served many capacities, but in recent years, it just has sat along Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Portland, just kind of wedged between Albina and the Irvington neighborhood. And its future is very uncertain right now. As you can see, it's just kind of sitting there not being used. Real tiny building. It's almost like a shack. And here's me walking along MLK Jr. Boulevard, approaching the Gray Building, which you can see there's buildings all over the place. You're in the city. But as you emerge from behind these buildings, I mean, here's the Gray Building. It's just a tiny little shack. So you're probably wondering, like, well, Steve, what does it matter? Why is this building important? This building is one of the most prominent locations connected to the history of African Americans in the city of Portland. I know living in the North, people think, especially the Pacific Northwest, people don't really think much was going on in terms of the civil rights movement. Back in the 60s when everything was getting really hot and heavy with that and so on, but this is part of America. Racism exists everywhere. It's actually been very prevalent in Oregon history. And this particular building, the reason it's known as the Gray Building is because one of the first people to reside in here was a family known as the Gray family. They lived here. This was their home. And the Gray family actually was a prominent African-American family. The wife in the family, who I believe was named Catherine Gray, she was very prominent in local religious activities, forming women's groups, which this was back, the first couple decades of the 20th century. So, it was pretty revolutionary to be progressing forth and creating, women's organizations and things of that nature. And they lived in this tiny place. And then you leap into the future. by the 60s and 70s, this was actually a significant location for the Black Panthers, who, their headquarters were literally a block or two south of this building. And they would gather here sometimes, and there were, interactions that happened, altercations. There was a thing called the skunk incident where someone had a dead animal left on their front porch, and this place played a connection in that incident. I really don't know a whole lot about that event, and I need to learn more. So this is a super prevalent location, and one of the things they're hoping to do is make this sort of like a museum or a memorial type thing for African American history, in the Portland area, which I think would be really cool. My big hope is that this place does not get destroyed, which that is still a concern as it kind of sits here. This footage is only about 6-7 months old, and as you can see, it's just sitting there with nothing going on. So I really hope that that is what they choose to do with it, to give this property purpose and meaning again, as it deserves. See you guys next time. Hi there, everyone. Steve the Amateur Historian here with you, doing another film for my Black History Month series. I posted a short video, almost an intro type video, regarding one of the most influential and yet forgotten buildings in Portland in relation to Black history in Portland, and that was the Gray Building. I'm going to be stopping by there again today to address something that I don't believe I mentioned in my video on the Gray Building. Now, I made sure to mention the Gray Building early on was the home to Catherine Gray, who was one of the first prominent black women in Portland, and later it was a succession of, I think it was a bar and a restaurant, and mostly black-owned businesses. Black Panther business was being done out of the Gray Building, and the Black Panther headquarters, which are no longer around, the building, I mean, were located literally right around the corner from the Gray Building. The 69 riots that happened on the block that the Gray Building was on. So, super significant, right in the middle of everything. But I'm going back there to talk about something that happened long after Catherine Gray, and long after even the 69 riots. I'm going back there today to bring you the story of Portland's infamous Possum Incident. Here we go, I have returned. Man, this is really tragic. The building has just had the living hell tagged out of it since the last time I was here. I didn't even know that the backside of the building is totally exposed. There's just a tarp blocking it. I've only seen it from the front over here. See, even the birds are pissed about what's happened to this building. Now, again, the main reason I've come back here is because by 1981, this building had become a burger joint. It was known as the Burger Barn. It was run by a black man, but it also had that history to it. So, in the spring, I believe, of 1981, 2 police officers were witnessed dumping 4 dead possums on the front doorstep, which is literally right here. And they were actually seen doing this by several witnesses. Witnesses said ultimately as many as 7 police officers showed up and were in some way either assisting or just involved. Now, ultimately, only the 2 officers that were seen actually putting the possums there on the front doorstep, they were the only ones that actually got into any trouble. There was massive citywide demonstrations about this because there was an obvious, racial aspect seen of it. The fact that this building has so much history to it, and it also was currently a restaurant establishment being run by a black person. And it was all, of course, white police officers that dropped possums off right here. So a lot of people think that perhaps one of the reasons they did this was to have an adverse effect on the business. There was obviously some, serious motivation to do something that stupid as a police officer. They tried to explain it away as a prank. And the worst part of the whole story is those two officers got fired, and then there was backlash from the police, who said that that was unjust, that they were too harshly punished, even though they engaged in a clear act of racism that was witnessed by people here. So, almost as quickly as these guys were fired, they were reinstated, which always seems to happen when you've got some kind of racial issue coming up involving police. They either don't get in trouble at all, or they get into trouble and then it gets swept under the rug later. And that's what happened in terms of the Possum Incident here, and back in 1981. More or less forgotten now in even Portland civil rights history. It's kind of been overwhelmed by, the '69 riots, different instances where police were involved in the shooting of black men that occurred under suspicious circumstances. I'm telling you, the birds know what's going on. Like, the more deeper I've gotten into this story, the more they are just screaming and squawking. It's like they know exactly what I'm talking about. So let's just take a second to literally sit down on history. And you can tell by the age of this thing, you can tell this is the same step, the same porch, essentially, that was here back in 1981. I don't think anything about this building has really changed. And before I go, with the gray building literally like a block behind me, I am standing on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard between Beach and Failing Streets, because if you look behind me, there's a vacant lot right here. Back in the 60s, there was kind of a ransacked, not so great looking building back there. That's where Portland's first Black Panther headquarters were located, in a building right in that lot that is no longer there. So, I thought I'd leave you with another little piece of history that, much like the gray building, is more or less probably unnoticed, unknown by the people that pass by. But all of that said, till next time, this is Steve the Amateur Historian. I'll see you next time.